Hi there. Today we shall be looking at how to do simple calculations in Excel. Today we shall be having a look at how to generate random numbers. We shall be having a look at how to perform an autofill. Also, some general problem solving in Excel. How to sum data, how to average data, and how to compute ifs. So please stay tuned as we will be looking at these topics. Okay, so first things first. Assuming that you have now opened Excel, I'd like you to follow these steps with me. When you are computing data, you first of all always begin with an equal sign. And from this equal sign, you can have a wide range of different calculations and computations in Excel. Once you begin to type in the calculation which you would like to do, then Excel will automatically give you some options of what it thinks you want to type. And then when you have found the one that you want to type, then you double click that one, double click, not single click, and then this will allow you to begin this computation. You may also choose to go to the top bar, formulas, insert function, and you can choose the function that you would like. In the example that you can see in this picture, we have a list of students from A to P and their different marks. Now, when we are generating a simple table, we have a problem that sometimes the size of these cells is not quite enough to show everything that's written. So what we do is we simply hover over the top part where is the alphabet, and we go to the part between the two letters, and we should see this symbol that is shown to you here. And then when you've clicked on the rows and you see this symbol, then double click and this will automatically resize and give you the correct dimensions. When generating random numbers, you'll see that when you begin to type in RAND, that there are two kinds of RANDs. There is RAND and RANDBETWEEN. Now the difference is this. RAND generates random numbers between 0 and 1. So this generates only decimal numbers with decimal places to many decimal places. Whereas RANDBETWEEN generates whole numbers without decimals, between the value which you choose, which is the minimum and the maximum. You will now type in your minimum value or bottom value, and then with a comma, followed by your top value, maximum value. Now that you've done this and closed the bracket, you should have a formula looking like this in this box at the top. Finally, when you've done this, please move your mouse to the bottom right corner of this box, click and drag downwards until the letter P. This will autofill for all of those students. Now you will copy and paste this formula for each column, then click and drag downwards to autofill as we have done previously. Now we have a slight problem because every time that we do something else, every time we press enter, then we have a different set of random numbers. So what do? This is what we do. We select the entire column, click copy, you press Ctrl C, and then you paste using the paste option, go down and select paste values. The summing calculation is perhaps one of the simplest and the most used of all the computations in mathematics and in Excel. In this table we have here, it may look a little bit complicated, but let's go step by step at how we did this. We start of all always with an equals. Always start your formulas with equals, and then we type in sum. When Excel has given us the sum, has given us the word sum, we double click this, and then we open the bracket, we select D2, and in this case D2 is a grade 5 for student A in English. And then we put a comma, don't forget the comma. Then we select E2, we put another comma, select F2, another comma, G2, another comma, followed by H2. And then we close this with the concluding parentheses at the final bracket. And then we press enter. Now that we've done this, to save us having to repeat this formula over and again, we just click on the bottom right corner of this cell and drag it all the way down to student P. Because we already know how to do the simple sum, the simple average is just as easy. And to do this, we start the formula with an equals. Always start with an equals. We begin to type in average, and Excel will give us the suggestion of the word average. We double click average, and then there will be an open bracket. We select D2, comma, E2, comma, F2, etc. to all the way to H2, and then we close the bracket, we press enter. The reason why I chose to teach you in this order is so that you can build your understanding of the simple functions of Excel. Now this one is a little bit more difficult. This is the if function. To do the if function, we must first of all make a decision table. But we have a problem. The problem is that the decision table, when we type in the number 1, it automatically assumes, it thinks that we want to type in the 1st of April. So what do? We press Control and number 1. The number 1 that we press is the one above the letters on the keyboard. This will then take us to Format Cells. When we are at Format Cells, we select, we change from the one that it's on already, and we go to General or Number, and this will solve this problem. And now we can proceed to the if. Before we go any further, I want to explain to you what I mean by the decision table. A decision table is the term that I use to explain when we're talking about a range of values. So in this table we have from 1 to 4.9, this would be a poor grade. From 5 to 5.9, this would be a mediocre grade, which means average. From 6 to 7.9, this would be a good grade. From 8 to 8.9, this would be a very good grade. And from 9 to 10 would be an excellent grade. This is what I mean by a decision table. Computing the if is a little bit more difficult, so what I want you to do is, before you type anything, get out your pencil or your pen and write on your piece of paper and think to yourselves, okay, so if this student's average is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 4.9, this means that their grade is poor. And if this student's grade is greater than or equal to 5 and less than or equal to 5.9, then this will be mediocre, and so forth for good, very good, and excellent. Write this down and think to yourselves, so that when you are typing this, it will make it a very much more easier. Okay, let us begin. Whenever we're doing a formula in Excel, we always begin with equals. So type in equals, and this time the formula we're using is if. So begin to type in if and double click on the suggestion which Excel gives to you. So remember that we are comparing the average of the students to this decision table. So now we must use the function AND. The reason why we use the function AND is because we are comparing it between a range of values. So remember, we're saying that if the students' average of their test marks for English, mathematics, chemistry, biophysics, and biology is between 1 and 4.9, then their grade is poor. If it's between 5 and 5.9, their grade is mediocre. So remember the AND. So we put equals if, bracket, and another bracket, then we select the average of the first student, which would be in the cell K2. And then we type in if this is greater than or equal to, so put the greater than equal to sign, and now we're referring to the cell Q 2. Now don't worry, because in the next picture this will change. The reason is because I added another column to make it more more visible to see. Okay, so Q2. Now in this picture you will see that this has $2 signs. Why does it have $2 signs? The dollar sign is what we use to lock the cell. We use $2 signs because we want to lock the column, which is Q, and also the row 2. The reason why we lock this is because when we do the autofill, when we go down the column by using the autofill, then this Q2 will become Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6, Q7, etc. We don't want this to happen, so we have to lock this, and for this we put the dollar and then the Q and $2, referring to the cell Q2. Or a simpler way is you can select the cell Q2 and then click on your press on your keyboard the key F4. It is a single key F4, and this is a lot more easier. Okay, so remember we are doing a comparison. We are referring to a range of values. So if it is greater than and equal to, if it's greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 4.9, so now what we must do is we must use the comma. We use the comma, don't forget the comma, and then we go back to select K2. So now select K2 and then refer back to your piece of paper that you've written down, and we put the symbol, remember, less than or equal to, and now we are referring to the cell R2, and because R2 is a cell that will not change when we do autofill, we have to lock this. So press on your keyboard F4 to lock this. Okay, does it make sense so far? If it doesn't make sense, please go back by three or so minutes in this video and watch it again, and it could make more sense for you. Okay, so if the average is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 4.9, the mark is poor. So now what we must do is we must close the bracket, because we are finished using the and. So we close the bracket, and that is the purple bracket that you can see. Well, the pink one. You close the bracket and then you put another comma and you select the cell, which is now Q2, which is poor. I mentioned before that this was going to change. It's because I inserted another column. So we select Q2 and we lock Q2 because Q2 will not change. Okay, does it make sense so far? Alright. Below where you are typing your formula, you'll find a box, and this box is to help you to find where you are in the formula. So we know that we've already typed in the logical test, and now we have already typed in the value if true, which is poor, which is P2. And now the value if false would be another if. So now we put a comma and we type in another if. Now this if is another if and. So this if and is the range of the values between 5 and 5.9. Now what I'd like you to do is to pause this video and try to work it out for yourself, and then replay to see if you got it right. So please pause and we shall resume when you're finished. Did you get it? Okay, excellent. If you didn't, don't worry, we're going to go through it. For the mediocre range, what you should have done is you should have continued from the previous computation, from the previous part, and in the area where it says value if false, in the box at the bottom, you type in another if and this if and should be referring to K2. So we are saying that if K2 is greater than if K2 is greater than and equal to 5, and if K2 is less than and equal to 5.9, then we will type in mediocre. So this should look like this. It should be written as this. Finishing off from the last part, which is where we have $Q$2, a comma, and then this next part is the value if false. So the value if false is the following if. And the following if is an if and, because we are saying if it is between this and that. Okay? So then it should write like this. It should say this. If bracket and bracket K2, referring to the average of the student A, is greater than or equal to S2, and remember we put $2 signs, so it's S$2 because we want to lock these, we want to lock them. S2, comma, the value if true. The value if true would be mediocre. So we refer to the value if true, which would be $Q$3. Okay, does that make sense? So remember, we are referring to that decision table which we made at the beginning, and in this case it is $Q$3, and the dollars are because we have locked the cell. Does that make sense? Excellent. Don't forget to lock the cell and don't forget your commas and your brackets. So please remind me again, when do we use the closing bracket? We use the closing bracket when we are closing the AND. So when we have finished saying if it is between 5 and 5.9, brackets, yeah? So we close the brackets there, and then we put a comma, and then we refer to the value if true, and the value if true is mediocre, and mediocre is found in the cell K3, I believe. Yeah, it's found in the cell K3. Okay, and now the next one we're going to do is we're going to be doing the good. As we go along, it becomes more easier because we understand and we use the same principles. So now the value if true, if K2 was indeed greater than or equal to 5 and less than or equal to 5.9, then the value, then Excel was going to write mediocre, was going to write what is written in that cell. Okay, but if the value is false, which is the other part of the equation, then we write another if and this if and is the one referring to the decision table, to the row of good. So now remember that piece of paper, remember in your thoughts, and look to your piece of paper and say to yourself, okay, if the value of K2 is greater than or equal to 6, and if it is less than or equal to 7.9, then we want Excel to write good. Okay, and how does this look like? It looks a little bit like this. So we continue on and we write another and we write another if and, which says if bracket and K2 is greater than or equal to R4, and R4 is referring to that cell which says 6. And remember, we have to lock this cell. So $R, $4. And in this picture, I forgot to do it, but you'll see it in the next one. I forgot to lock it. Okay, and then we put a comma for the other side of the and. So the comma inside the and, it means the and. Okay, so the other part of the and is if K2 is less than or equal to $S, $4, and $S, $4 is 7.9. That is the cell which says 7.9. And then we close the bracket. Remember, we close the bracket, and here the closing bracket is a green bracket. and then we put another comma. Now, if you forget any of these stages, then Excel will help you. But if you do forget it, then at the end you'll have an error message. So please make sure that you are paying attention. Value if true is $Q $4. Why is it $Q $4? Well, exactly because it says in $Q $4. It says it in the cell Q4. Good, and we want to lock that cell, so we put $2 signs. Okay, does that make sense? And now what I want you to do is I would like you to anticipate the next one and even the next one and try to finish this by yourself, and together we will go through what you have done for yourself. Is this okay? Okay, thank you. How was it? Is it making sense? Oh, okay, terrific. Now, I'm not going to explain any further for very good and excellent because we just use the very same principle. The purpose of this video is to help you to learn so that you can understand, not just so that you can type in and know that this is the formula, but so that you can understand why this is this and why this is that. So I hope that you've understood in such a way that you can go and teach somebody else, because this is the whole purpose of teaching. Right. Now for the very good, you should have gotten this. You should have put this, something similar, into your formula. And remember, do not forget to lock the cells like I forgot to lock them. And remember that we lock the cells which do not change. And because they are fixed values or words that will remain the same when we use the autofill. But the values, for example, the average for students A to P, they will change, so we do not lock them. We don't lock them. And now for the excellent. Did you get this? Excellent. So, for the excellent, this is now what you should have. And just to briefly explain, this is the final part. So what we did at the beginning is we had if and K2 was greater than or equal to this value and less than or equal to that value, then this is the value if true, and the value if false is the next if. And for that next if, the same thing, and the value if false for that if is the next if, and the value if false for that if is the next if and. Or when I say if, I mean if and. And finally, when we come to the end, what do? We close with the brackets. How many brackets do we use? We use as many brackets as we have done if ands. So if we have done 5 if ands, in this case we have done 5 if ands, how many brackets do we put? We put 5 if ands. And remember that when that during your inputting of the formula, when you are making reference to this table and you're saying, for example, for excellent, if you're saying if K2 is greater than or equal to 9, and in this case the value for 9 is R5, yes, okay, R5, no, sorry, I apologize, R6. So if K2 is greater than or equal to R6, which has been locked, and if K2 is less than or equal to S6, which has also been locked, then the final thing that we put is excellent, and this is the conclusion. We put excellent, and here the excellent we are referring to Q6. And remember, if we are making reference to a cell which does not change, we always lock. How do we lock? By using F4, pressing F4. And now finally, when you press entered, you should have something which looks like this. And finally, we use the autofill. I want you to click and drag from the bottom right corner all the way down to the final student, and you should have a complete table with complete of totals, with complete random numbers which have stayed the same, with complete summed totals, with complete averages, and finally with complete grades using the decision table. If you have any problems, then if there is an exclamation mark or if it says fail, then please go back to your formula and look at the value of the average, see if it should fall within the range of poor or mediocre or good or very good or excellent, and see which one is broken. When you've seen which one is broken, then you can go and fix the one which is broken and see what you have forgotten. Most likely you have forgotten to put some brackets. Most likely you have forgotten to lock the cell. And this is why I've been repeating again and again to lock them and to put your brackets for the ands. Okay? And finally, you should have something which looks like this. Ta-da! Okay, marvelous. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you've understood. I hope that you've learned. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Also, in the information box at the bottom of this video, you'll find a link to a further explanation to give you understanding of these things. Thank you, and may God bless you. Bye bye.